On today's video, we're going to be role-playing sprint planning. My goal today is basically to cover what will the Scrum Master do before sprint planning and during sprint planning and after sprint planning. So I think it's very important for us to have this conversation. As my last video, I did a video on how to facilitate sprint planning and also have like a whole list of suggested ways you can use during sprint planning. Welcome back to AISHA SCRUM. I'm very happy to have you all join my platform. For my current subscribers and my new subscribers, I welcome you all to my channel and thank you for watching my videos. And if you're interested in mentorship, do not hesitate to call me at 484-767-1979. You can also look at our website online, aishatex.com. So fun fact about me, when I was a new Scrum Master, I used checklists during sprint planning. And for me, that was very, very helpful for me because then I was new. I needed something to remind me so that I will cover everything that's needed during sprint planning. And I'm also not only to remind the PO or remind the team things that we are doing and following all of these steps. And as a Scrum Master, it's very important because we play a huge role during sprint planning. Not only we are worried about like what we plan to work on, the sprint goal, reminding the PO to prioritize the story, know what the team will be working on, and also collaborate with the stakeholder to ensure that we have the right thing in our backlog. Also ensure that we have the developers that are available, we have people that will be working, we have in our stories that are not dependent to anyone, there's no any other risk. So even there is, we already have conversation about it, and also ensuring that team members have like that the environment is safe, they're able to speak up, they're allowed to speak up, and they also can basically have say in what they'll be working on. So that's why it's very important for us as Scrum Master. We like pay very, very close attention and we observe and also ensure that we are not just being, the team members are not just being told like, oh, you must do this and you must do that. But instead, they are able to see the value of what they are building and why are they building it and what is the benefits to the end user and also the business. So my checklist that I have, I know I've covered some of them in my last video about how to facilitate a Scrum event, how to facilitate a sprint planning. I used to like basically have some things that I had in my checklist was on looking over previous sprints, looking about people's availability and some things I'll put, okay, pre-sprint planning, during sprint planning, and post-sprint planning. So I labeled each what I would do in my checklist before sprint planning and during sprint planning. So the checklist was very important to me because when I collaborate with the PO, like let's say, for example, we have a sprint planning next week. So on this week, I'm already syncing up with the PO and asking the product owner, okay, do you know about the next important item we'll be working on from the product backlog? And the PO like, oh yeah, I have this item, but I have to finalize things with the stakeholder. Just give me some moment. Okay, can you just give me what you have? Is there any dependency, the risks that I need to follow up with, or do you need any my help for anything? So I start this conversation ahead of time. But let's say you work in an environment where it's a safe environment. And we all know for safe, sometimes some of these have already been raised during PI planning. And that's when, as you're approaching those dependency, as you're approaching those suggested risks, it's good to hopefully ensure that you've addressed it before the sprint that's about to start. And also you follow up, looking at what was raised in that during PI planning and ensuring that all those risks and dependencies are being cleared out before it's now put into your sprint backlog. So that's something, all of those different things I do behind the scene prior to coming to sprint planning. But if also your team do have backlog refinements, these are some questions too you can raise and bring up during your backlog refinements and starting those conversations early. So it's very important. If we are able to start those conversations early, then it will be very good for us and it will be easier for us during sprint planning. So the goal today for me basically is to first do like a demo about sprint planning. And we're going to act like we did not have a backlog refinement. And also we're in a safe environment and we do not have a ready backlog. And we're going to be doing 2-week sprints, looking at my Jira board here. I have all my stories in the product backlog and my current sprint that's about to start is literally empty. Let's say yesterday was Tuesday, my sprint ended, and today is Wednesday, my new sprint is about to start. And if you're looking at this board right now, for some Scrum Master, they're like, what? Really? You don't have anything in the backlog? You know, for some people, like, especially for safe environments, you already see like all of your iterations already being created, right? And you already have some stories in some of those iterations. Then you're looking at that. But for some environment that's not safe, you basically sometimes you come in, it's like a blank slate. But that's not a good practice, right? We hopefully will try to narrow down what we want to work on in the sprint and have it in this space. So during our sprint planning discussion, we are covering things that the PO deemed that is the most important. And so that we just work from here and finalize it. It's still not a bad thing. So if the product owner will prioritize all of this in the product backlog and rank it, right? Because if the product owner prioritize those stories, already rank the stories or the bug that if in case we're working on any, then during sprint planning, then it's just easier for us to pull it from the product backlog just to pull it into the sprint backlog in here. But before we do that, let's just take this moment and talk about the first thing we do, right, as a Scrum Master. So let's first talk about summary about what I already described what we do prior, right? Prior, I've already summarized about dependency risks and also availability, right? But let's say I already asked my team members prior to the sprint planning, like anyone taking off, and I already know that we have offshore holiday, we don't have onshore holiday. If you don't know what I'm talking about, onshore, offshore, about availability and capacity, I have a playlist on capacity planning. Please take your time and watch that capacity planning video that will also help you. But if your company do not do capacity planning, do not even watch it. Just watch the velocity, because I know you're either going to use one or the other, either the capacity planner or the velocity. I know for some people too, they use both. So that'll be the first thing, right? We'll look at the capacity planner, which I have example here that we're going to be using for demo purposes. So let me show you that. So now that we have our capacity planner, let's say I've already have a conversation with the team prior to planning, and now we are in planning. I still like to show up the capacity planner just to let everyone know how I came up with my number, our availability. It's very important that my team will know this, how I came up with our availability. So then I already know that we have offshore holiday, like my offshore developer, I've already given them one, and my offshore developer already given them one. And in this case, we have 7 members that will be doing the work in the sprint. We are not counting product owner on this capacity planner. We are not counting Scrum Masters, and we are not counting BA or BSA, except maybe your BSA are the one doing testing, then for sure you can add them. But only the people that are actually doing the hand work we are having on this capacity planner. So then I will tell my team, okay, looking at our capacity planner, we've have everything in place. I've already put in the off. Is anyone planning to take any PTO or holiday that I'm not aware of? Did anything change from our last session last week? All right, no, nothing changed. All right, good. As of right now, this is where we stand. We have 54 story points as our availability. I did not take out buffer in this case because I know we've been completing our regular amount of work. So we also will look at our board. So we have availability of 54 story points for this sprint. All right. So then now that we have this available and we have our availability, now let's go back to our sprint. So then we'll go back to the Jira board. And now let's say that your company also, you don't use capacity planner, you basically always will go by your average velocity, and your team will always use your average velocity to determine your workload of your sprint. In that case, you will do what you will do at work still and just follow that. But then if my company will do average velocity, I will still showcase my velocity charts to my team and explain to them how I came up with our average velocity. Okay, now, team, now we're ready for sprint planning. Let me just tell you what we are right now and what is our story points availability we can take for this particular sprint. So last sprint, this was what we planned. This is what we completed. In this case, we didn't complete anything this sprint, looking at this chart. Hopefully that's not the case for some of you. And in this sprint, we plan for this and we plan for that. So I'm going to take the average of 1, 2, 3, 4. And the average of these 5 sprints, looking at this completed, because then we do the completed to get the average, is basically like 3.8. So I'll say 4. What a huge difference, right? So we saw the availability based in hours. It's like they have up to 54 availability. And then here I see that the availability going by our average velocity, which is our true way of what we are actually doing our work and the pace that we are working, because this is what we are actually delivering, is 4. So it's like, wow, what a huge number, right? So then the case would be like, okay, if my company use both, what will I now tell the team? To be honest, I will stay in the middle and just tell them we can plan for work in between, because you can't have your team just plan for 4 story points in a sprint. That wouldn't make sense, right? Because we still, as much as we only want to ensure that we can take on what we can complete, but sometimes there will be a lot of circumstances in the teams that things will happen that we can complete our stories. Hopefully, that won't continue to happen, because if it continue to happen, that nobody will be happy with us, right? But that's something we have to continue to address and discuss during retrospective, and hopefully we can improve. Now, let's say that I've seen our availability and capacity is 54, and I've looked at our average velocity, and basically our average velocity is 4. But I'm going to say that, okay, team, now that we have this new work that the product owner have brought to us, let's just go over the backlog and ensure that we can pull in the work that the product owner sees that we have to work on next. And then we all can have a conversation and determine, after we've estimated what we can take or how much we can take in a sprint. And we go from there, So in that case, I won't just impose that my team, we must commit to 54 story points, or you can only take 4 story points. But instead, I'll just be open and be flexible, and hopefully we'll see. But if my company go by the capacity planning, then I will 100% tell my team that we have availability of 54 story points. So basically, we just discard the average velocity and we'll just use the capacity, because that's what we use in our company. I'm not like dictating what people use, because I know every company is different. Just always go by your company. So now let's say you are the Scrum Master now and you look at the product, you came in now, it's time to start the sprint. The sprint is empty, like we were discussing, and in our team, we're assuming that we do not do backlog refinements. So the next thing I'm asking the PO as a Scrum Master, like, okay, now they're ready to start to work on our sprints. Is the backlog prioritized, right? I see we already have stories at the top of the backlog. Is that the next thing that we must work on? I'm asking the PO, right? But sometimes your PO too will be like, oh, can I just facilitate this session about pulling the story from the product backlog to the sprint backlog? And of course, I'll let the PO do that. I won't say, oh, no, you have to tell me what, and I'll move things around. No, if your PO would like to take on that role and drag and pull and put things up and down where we want to work on next, that's still fine. But if the POC want to tell me how and which one to pull in from the product backlog to the sprint backlog, that's still fine. So let's say that the PO stated that, oh, Aisha, go ahead, you can facilitate the session. Oh, by the way, pull in story number AIS 15. So when they're calling the numbers of the story, they mean basically the Jira tickets number. And this is the Jira tickets number right here. And every Jira issue that's placed on Jira, they will have a number to it. It will either be your project key and the number of the story itself. So it will tell you the key. And sometimes POs will tell you like, oh, pull in ticket AIS 15, or they will even read those title for you and ask you to pull that. In this case, this is a bug, right? Because we see it's a red, it's a bug. So I'm like, okay, that one, all right, cool. What else do we have to pull? They're like, okay, pull in all the ones that are high priority, the first 10 ones that are high priority. Because if you look at currently in our backlog, it's not prioritized. And how did I know that? I can tell it's not prioritized just by looking at the priority icon, right? So this priority here is saying highest. This priority here is saying medium. And down here to have highest. So meaning that my backlog is not ranked. The stories are prioritized, right? Because I have the right priority on them. But the backlog itself is not ranked, meaning the things that are most priority to the work, to the business, is not at the top of the backlog. It's basically all over the place. But if the PO can do this ahead of time before coming to planning, That would be very important. By the way, if you've been finding my content valuable, like and subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it. All right. So now let's say that the PO said everything with the critical we're going next. So then as a Scrum Master, then I'm looking for the ones that are highest, which are critical. I'll just pull them, move it up and down. You click and drag basically, and you let go to pull things up and down. So now I highlight, click and drag. I put all those at the top. Well, okay, what next can we work on? Oh, let's work on AIS 9. AIS 9, all right, I'll pull AIS 9. I'll put that, where is that? And okay, which one again? What else can we work on? Now what we are going to be working on AIS 27. So then I pull AIS 27 here. So the next thing, like, oh, what about fixed new wireframe? That's already a priority. Would that also be included in this sprints? The PO like, yes, that'll be included. Pull it in. Like, okay, I'll drag that so I go all the way up. All right, so okay, now I've pulled like all of the critical at the top of the backlog, and the other ones that you asked me to pull up, I've have it all at the backlog and ranked. So as of right now, is there any other thing that we'll need to plan to put in sprints? This sprints 4 that's about to start. Then I'm asking the PO that. And then the PO will be like, oh yeah, let's just pull those ones for now and have conversation with them, which we will do, right? And then in this case, I will just pull all of them. I want to pull all of them at once, so I don't have to click each one of them and drag it and drop it. And now that I've highlighted that, I'll just highlight all the other ones. Basically, if you use Apple, it's just command, you press down the command, you just click on all the stories. After that, you right click. After you right click, you just move right here. If you just to do like a bulk move from your product backlog to your sprint backlog. And then it's saying, Jira is now, after I right click, then Jira will give me this option. I want to move this to sprint 4, which is my next sprint that's about to start. I want to flag it. I want to add a parent, but I just want to move it to sprint 4. And I click and I add to sprint 4. Voila. So now I've moved all my story to, just go to sprint. So now I've moved all my story to sprint 4. Because this is what the product owner deems is the most important for us to work on next. So now, by the way, let me tell you guys one funny story. One time, you see these arrows here that you click, and then one time my PO told me that, oh, Aisha, I have all the stories ready for you. It's in the backlog. I was like, I came to the backlog. I was like, no, I saw sprint 4 already being created, but I can't find the backlog. Apparently, it's this arrow that was closed. So don't be like me. If this arrow is closed, just click it and open it. That's how you open it. The arrow will be down. You click on that's how to open, to reopen it and close. So yeah. So now that we have our story in our product backlog, so the next thing is basically to go over it, right? Even if you already have a ready backlog and you've already discussed this during sprints, during backlog refinement, it's always a good practice to click and ask the team, like, okay, I see this story is about fixing this issue. It's a highest priority, so meaning that they want us to complete this in this sprint. And is there anything that changed from our backlog refinement? You ask simple question like that. And then the team will tell you, oh no, everything is good, nothing has changed. And okay, fine. So let's go to the next bug ticket. Okay, so we have this wireframe to fix and all of that. I know we went over this during backlog refinements. Did anything change? No, do we have anything that we need to add or remove? Yeah. At this moment, we are not worried about who is working on what or who is going to be taking on this work. Because why? We have to estimate first. We have to estimate to ensure that everyone will participate in the estimation. In order for us to ensure that, we have to ensure that we are not assigning tasks yet. We do that last, and the developers, hopefully they'll go and assign the tasks their own. But right now, we just have to ensure that this understanding and this there's a true clarification or anything needed about the work. The team are understanding the what and why. That's what we are doing here. We are ensuring that the team members are understanding the what and why, right? And then that's why, if you notice, I'm using the 3 C's, right? I pull the card, I go over, the first C is the card, right? Which I just clicked on. And the next thing is the conversation, which we're having this conversation, right? And the end is the confirmation by me asking, did anything we need to change? Do we have to clarify anything? Do we have to adjust anything? And then remember, oh no, that we good, we fine. All right, good. So now let's move to the next one. You continue to do that for the rest of the tickets, right? So then if you have a user story, let's say, for example, like this one, you're a Scrum Master, hopefully you've already looked at those priority story or the next story that we're working on next ahead of time. Because if you do that, then you'll catch something like this that just be written as a user, I would like to create YouTube accounts. That's not a good user story, right? We don't know the who, what, and why. And also, we do not have acceptance criteria. If you are able to check on all of this prior to sprint planning, you're able to follow up with the PO and hopefully get stuff added. So you won't use your sprint planning to be fixing stories or to be fixing description or be fixing stuff. But instead, you can 100% use your sprint planning to clarify things or change or readjust your acceptance criteria. Sometimes even readjust your user story itself based on the feedback coming from the team, you know. But it's important for you, the Scrum Master, to take your time ahead of sprint planning to go over all of this. So when you do come to sprint planning, you also will have stuff to follow up and ask questions on. And that's why it's also important to open all of the stories to go over it. The reason why I'm saying this is that as a coach, I've observed a lot of sprint planning, right? I'm exposed to a lot of teams, right? Sometimes I will see like team members are like, oh, we went over backlog refinement and we've said everything. Okay, now let's just go to estimation. We can do things like that, right? It's still very important for us to just open each story and show that everyone still agrees, like nothing changed, but things can change and things can be moved at any given point, which is still fine, right? As long we didn't start our sprints, we can add or remove anything at any given point. And sometimes I know when we do start our sprint, so sometimes we do get some kind of scope change, but that's still fine, right? You still have to address it based on importance, based on need, will not determine if we'll take it or not, right? So in this case, I'll definitely call this out. You're like, oh, by the way, looking at this user story, I see that we are missing acceptance criteria. Is this something maybe that we need to add? And I'm asking the PO, or maybe I see maybe you forgot to add that in here. You know, you can now be mean to the PO too, being so rude. You have to know how to talk to people without being so like coming as authoritarian or coming in as such harsh. Just be nice when you're asking questions, you know. But if you check this ahead of time, you can catch it. So then we'll go to the next story. Then hopefully these are one story that I'll ask the PO if they can go back and add information if needed, or do we still have to work on it in this sprint? What if there's more clarification than needed? But if the team member said that, oh yeah, it's fine. We understand the asks, we understand what's needed. I'll keep it. And I'll ask, okay, oh, do we have to pull this back to the product backlog? Sometimes by you going over all of this too, you might have to pull some things back and go back to the backlog and pull things in. Basically, that's you do all of this back and forth. But if you're able to do this ahead of time, you'll still save time. You know, I'm just going back to me saying that again, repeating myself, right? So then you go to the next stories and you check it all, you look at the description, you look at that, you do everything. And then you ask, now that we've went over the whole story, is there anything that needs to be changed? Is there anything that we need to remove? Is there anything that we need to add? No? Yes? All right. So now let's go to estimation. And now in this case, when the PO, let's say for example, so the PO2 was facilitating, that's the time now, you, the Scrum Master, will now take over hopefully sharing and now ask the team, let's start estimating the first one. And estimating bug, it depends, right? If your company, you estimate bug, that's fine, then you can. But if your company do not estimate bug, then do not estimate bug. You know, just go by your company's policy. Then in this case, let's say my company, we do not estimate bug. I'll leave my bug blank. But basically just to ensure that it's something that we can complete within the sprint. Even though your bugs are not estimated, it still takes a lot of time from the development team to do the work. So always be mindful, like if you're in that environment that you do not estimate your bug, just know that also you just have behind your back of your head as a Scrum Master that if you notice that most of your item in your backlog, it's a lot of bug and it's not estimated, don't plan for work close to your availability. Just plan for half of that, just to account for all this extra time it will take them to do this work. All right, so now let's say we're estimating this particular user story and now we are asking the team, I don't know if you use planning poker or agile poker, and then you use that planning poker, you open the tool and you call out the story that you guys will be estimating on, and you ensure that the estimation is done anonymously and everyone will participate and estimate. It's not just one person throwing out a number or the product owner throwing out or telling them, are you sure that's that? Don't you should change it to this. No, we don't want anyone to inflict their votes. We want the developers themselves to estimate without us like telling them how to vote. They should know how to vote, right? And let's say they've estimated this, they give this story like a 5, and everyone agrees that that's a 5. You estimate that, they will go to the next one and they all estimate this to 5. Everyone agree? All right, so we estimate that to a 5, everyone agree. So now let's say now they've have planned work for like almost 17 story points, right? Me as a Scrum Master, they're giving numbers to all of these estimates. I'm looking at the overall estimates at the top. It's important for you to be looking at that. Let's say we've been estimating all the stories and now we've estimated it. It's now above our, I know that I put a bug estimate here. I know I said one estimate bug. Let's say now we now have availability, our availability that we predicted that was our availability was, let's say 10, right? Let's say it was 10. And in this case, say it was 10, and I see that we're now over, like we are 50, we are 15. And that's when I'll now ask the team and the PO, like, oh, by the way, we had availability for 10 story points. Right now, we've estimated close to 17, plus these two that's in progress. We've estimated close to 17. Are you all confident that we are able to complete all of these 17 story points within the sprint? I know like we are above our availability. Is everyone confident with that? Or can we pull some stories out, So always just go by not just what they are telling you. Sometimes you can feel the room, like if you can see it a lot for people. And sometimes I know in Jira, you can even click and see the overall estimates for each of the story. So then you look at it and you're like, okay, by the way, the stories have already been estimated, it's already been 17 story points. We also have bulk stories that will take out their time for them to work on. And that will also definitely take out time, and we're already above our availability from 10 to 17. So I will now suggest that if the team members say, oh yes, we'll be fine, which most of the time, 9 out of 10, they will always say, yes, we are fine, yes, we are good. And if that's the case, you now remind them, oh, by the way, remember, we have all these bug stories that's not estimated. And now we have these stories that have been estimated to 17 story points. I highly think this is still a lot. I think we should definitely pull out some story because we are way beyond our estimation. And last sprint, we committed for 13 story points and we completed 0. So you see how you will connect things with them so that when you are giving you the reason why you shouldn't take on more, you explain, you give them data, you suggest things to them and you show them. And after, sometimes I even go as far as opening up my velocity chart and show the team like, oh, last sprint we committed to 13, we completed 0. Sprints, we are not only estimating beyond 13, we are estimating close to 17, and we also have extra bulk tickets in the chart. I'm a little concerned that we might not be able to complete all of this. I still feel like we should definitely pull out some stories in the backlog. After you mention that, to be honest, I think they will definitely say, okay, yeah, maybe we should pull out 1 or 2 things. So let's say the team now agree that we can pull out 2 stories. So now the question is, what of these prioritized stories do we pull out, right? Which one do we pull out? And then we'll ask the PO, right? That's where the product owner comes in place because they will be the one to always know what do we do first? Which one is the most priority that cannot wait because the stakeholder is waiting for it in the next 2 weeks, right? Or which one we can just put for later where she can go back and renegotiate with the stakeholder, right? In this case, the product owner have to make decisions. All right, Aisha, I think you should pull out this bug. I know it was very important. It was very critical. I think it's something, by the way, I think just pull out this environment database fix. That is something we can come back and fix later. I highly will encourage you to we can keep that for later. Like, okay, Then I'll click on it and I'll pull it out of the sprint backlog. I'll just click and drag and put it to the sprint backlog at the top of the backlog. Okay, I see we're pulling out one, so I still feel like we can take out one more. So what do you think we can take out of the sprints, sure that we are not over, team members are not overworked and overplanned. And also remember, team, we have offshore holiday, right? If you all recall in our capacity planner, we have offshore holiday. I know it's true, our availability is showing that we have all this availability, but our velocity is showing that we can't even complete as much. And we also have extra bulk tickets. We also have offshore holiday. So I think we can take out one more thing out. And then the PO2 like, oh no, I don't think so. I think let's just try it. Let's just try it. I'm like, by the way, okay, let's do this deal, right? Because sometimes PO2 will push back. They'll be like, nope, we're not doing that. Let's just go about it. And the developers, what do you think? They'll be like, oh, yeah, okay. Developers, from my experience, sometimes some of them will always say, oh, I think it's fine. I think it's good. That's why we shield our team as Scrum Masters. We speak up for our team, right? And let's say in this case now the PO push back and say, no, we're not taking anything out. So then what would you do as a Scrum Master, right? Comment down below. Have you experienced this in the past where you are suggesting for the team to commit to less based on their historical data showing that they are not able to complete what they are actually planning for, or their availability do not match on what they are committing for in their workload? Have you experienced such things? If so, comment down below. And if you get this far, I've known that you've watched the video this far. So comment down below in the chat if you have experienced that. So in this case, what I would do, what I've done in the past that helped me negotiate with the PO is basically to say that, okay, I think what we would do in this case is basically, let's say that the team members complete all their work, right? At any given point in the team. And we have some members that are available that can take on tasks. I think let's do this. Let's just more out and have at the top of the backlog. And if any one of these team members are able to complete their work before like the sprint, we definitely will pull it back in. Usually the PO will always say yes. Okay, all right, that's fine. We can do that. Like, okay, which one do we take out? And the PO will say, okay, just take out this YouTube account one. All right, I will take that one out of the backlog. Click and drag, basically, if you're putting it in the backlog. So I took that one out, I put it at the top of the backlog. And now I already know that, and everyone already know that too in the team, that as soon as they're done doing their work, they can just come to the top of the backlog and pull in the next story. And some of you will be like, okay, what if I have already, I'm in a PI safe environment. I already have sprint 5 created. I already have sprint 6 created. And we've already planned for all of this work during PI planning. So what would I do, Aisha? Do I still go back and pull things out, put back in? I'm like, yes, you still have to. PI planning is basically you do high level planning, right? You don't plan for 100% during PI planning because as you're approaching those iterations, you have to address your current states. You have to address the state you are in. So that's something that you will continuously will have to do, continue to plan, and the product owner will continue to reprioritize the backlog. So at any given point, even if you already have sprint 5 workload already planned, sprint 6 workload already planned, we still were able to reprioritize and pull those stories out and put it in that sprint 5 at the top of the backlog. So the team members will know that as soon as they're done doing their work, they'll just go up there and pull those stories back in and continue doing their work. Because then what? That's a good scope change because the team members were completing their work ahead of time and they even completed more than our last sprint of not completing anything. And they even went back to the board and took on more work. That's actually something that's very, very good, So if that's the case, let's say then the PO agree and we put it here. So now the next thing that we finalize estimation, then we have our sprint goal. And now, like, okay, team, now that we finalized our work, is everyone comfortable? Everyone okay with what we've currently planned? Is there anything that we need to change or add or readjust, And then the team members will tell you like, oh, yes, fine. I'm like, okay, now that we're good, we are fine. So let's just have our sprint goal. And that's when I'll come and edit and have our sprint goal. I'm going to put this for like a 2-week sprint. After I put it for a 2-week sprint, and under here, I'll now ask the product owner, like, oh, what's our sprint goal for this sprint, Or then I'll ask, then the product owner will tell me, okay, teams, The product owner said our sprint goal for this team is to complete all our migration. What do you all think? Are you all confident we are able to meet this goal? The product owner gave us a suggestion, and I'm clarifying with the team. And then the team will be like, oh yes, sure, we are good, we can do that, we are able to meet that. All right, see, that's the case, and then we'll write it. Complete migration. And I hit update. So then in there, so we as Scrum Master, then we have to ensure that this sprint goal that we have here, this particular sprint goal, basically matches what we have in the backlog, in the sprint backlog. So we are looking for this goal that we have. Something might be like long goal. The goal should be brief, achievable, measurable, and small, right? So hopefully that's something that I do right. And I'm looking at the backlog to ensure that all what we have here basically relates to this particular goal. Sometimes I know that we have like some kind of fix here and there, which is fine, just to ensure that this goal that we have here definitely reflects what we have in this particular sprint backlog. So now that we have everything and everything is done, then now tell the team, okay, team, now that we have everything, please assign yourself your tasks. If a team member tells, oh, Aisha, can you just assign me these tasks? And I'll assign them the tasks. I said, okay, you can either tell me which tasks to assign to you, or offline, you can go and assign yourself those tasks. It depends what the team want to do or what the team choose to do. But you won't impose and start forcing people to assign themselves the tasks, based on the kind of policy you work around with. But the developer should have a say on how they want to assign the site and how they want to work on, And let's say now all of that is done, and I'll just hit start sprint. So now I hit start sprint, my sprint already started. And if you notice, some stories just moved to in progress and testing, those stories were spillover. Those story was spillover, it will go back to the old status it was when you started in the new sprint. But it's very important for me to say that if you have a spillover in your backlog during sprint planning, ensure that you go over those spillover. Don't just assume that when a story is a spillover, then automatically it just move on to the backlog, or automatically you have to just make it part of the next sprint. It's extremely important you go over all those potential spillover, all those spillover stories, ensure that the same mistakes that happened this sprint that just ended won't happen in the new sprint. All the spillovers, so you have a conversation around them. Stories that have stories that have blockers, don't add those same blocker story in your sprint. If those stories are important, we still can keep them in the other, like in the backlog, at the top of the backlog. And when the blockers have been resolved or have been taken out, then we can always bring it back to the sprint. Don't put things in your sprint that it's blocker, or someone say, oh, I'll get to it later, or something that because it's a spillover, and that means we have to move it automatically. We don't do all of those things. You just have to ensure that always what you have in your your sprint backlog is stories that are ready to be worked on. It meets your definition of ready, very, very important. So now our sprints have been started and we are ready to work. As a Scrum Master, if I already know that some stories are not assigned, I'll just have to write it down, and throughout my day, as my team is doing the daily Scrum, I'm following up and ensure that when people have things in progress, it's actually in progress. And everything in progress must have an assignee. You can have stories in progress that do not have assignee. Things can be in to-do that do not have assignee, that's fine. In progress, everything in progress must have assignee, And hopefully I'll thank my team then. Thank you very much for such a wonderful planning, and thank you all for your participation. Thank you all for your contribution. And I hope to see you all tomorrow, Daily Scrum. And I hope we all have a successful sprint. Happy sprint planning. That's it. That's how I facilitate and role play sprint planning. I just want doing this just to help other people. So a lot of people have been sending me email about sprint planning for a while. I just needed the time to do it because it's like a very long topic for sure. Thank you all for watching my video. I truly, truly appreciate you all watching. And if you are interested in mentorship, do not hesitate to email me at admin@aishascrumtech.com. And also you can check our website at www.aishatech.com. Thank you all. Have a wonderful week.